Hey, I'm Anthony Romano, and this video is called The Best Cardio You Can Do is More Weightlifting. So the premise of this video is that whenever somebody's on an aggressive fat loss cut and they're already training in the gym, you will get way more benefit out of simply burning those calories by doing the activities of resistance training rather than, low intensity steady state cardio or even high intensity interval training. So I'm going to get into this video, but before I do, I'd like you to like and subscribe, because if you like this video, that will make YouTube show my videos more to other people, and that's all you have to do to help me grow this page. On that note, I also have programs and one-on-one coaching I offer. You can find those at my website, and I have a ketone supplement giveaway, which you can find the rules for in the description and win some supplements. So check that out before it ends. Let's get into the video. Okay, so why is weightlifting for a second session in the day a better way to perform cardio on a fat loss cut than Liss or Hiit, which is low intensity steady state cardio or high intensity interval training? And those are the terms I'm going to use to refer to them because they're a mouthful, Liss and Hiit. So I've made plenty of other videos comparing Liss and Hiit, and the premise is that Liss is keeping your heart rate within a range where your body doesn't perceive enough demand to churn through glucose, so carb fuel that's stored in your muscles, typically in your liver. So when you're doing high intensity interval training or Hiit, what's going to happen is most of the time you're not actually going to be burning fat, because fat is a longer burning fuel. Carbs are the quick burst fuel, like a nitrous oxide in a car, okay? Carbs are fat is like gasoline, and it's a long burning fuel, and you can still get a nasty speeding ticket with fat. But the thing is, carbs are meant for emergency situations, and when you were doing Hiit, that's the message you're sending your body. So there's still benefits from doing that time to time on a fat loss cut, but the mainstay should probably be Liss, because you are going to milk up more fat loss that way without taxing the central nervous system as much compared to Hiit. So let's get into Liss versus weightlifting, okay? Because as far as a, steady state cardio goes, or a steady state calorie burn that isn't going to be taxing to the central nervous system, a light weightlifting scenario is what we're looking at here. A light session, a fun, circuit style session where you're simply training muscles in a manner that's not going to be taxing. Okay, that's what I'm talking about with this secondary weightlifting session of the day. So when you take that and you compare it to Liss, so, incline walking on a treadmill, which is one of the better forms of cardio, and I advise it for a lot of people. And keep in mind, this secondary weightlifting training session of the day is for the more hardcore of users here, because I know not everybody's going to do this, and the easier way to get a comparable result here would be to do Liss. So walking incline on a treadmill for 20 minutes, doing a little bit of stationary biking without a crazy intensity for 20 minutes. That type of a thing is Liss. The thing is, with weightlifting, okay, if you compare that secondary session versus a stationary bike session, okay, what's going to happen is they're both going to burn around the same amount of calories. Okay, if you lift weights again for 30 to 40 minutes and you're not going super heavy, you're just cranking out another workout, getting a little bit more stimulus to your muscles, you are creating effects hormonally by weight training that tell your body to upregulate red blood cell production, to upregulate insulin sensitivity, to upregulate certain sensitivity of certain muscular tissues and the anabolism of those tissues. You are telling your body, not only are we burning, 300 calories here, but you're also telling it that there's more demand here to keep muscle around. There's more demand here to essentially prioritize maintaining that muscle and even build it while you're cutting. So this is a very powerful technique when you're cutting, because in a lot of ways you can, increase muscle mass perhaps, because you're making your body adapt to a stressor that it goes beyond simply calorie burn. This is why when you do more training sessions, you're going to increase force production, ATP production. You are going to essentially, that was the evidence behind it, okay? But essentially what you're doing is you're telling your body that if this is a primal environment, an evolutionary environment, ancestral environment, what's going to happen is you're telling your body that you simply have a lot of muscular work to do. And because we are adaptive, if we didn't adapt, we wouldn't survive, and we wouldn't be here right now if this was not a mechanism in the human body. All living organisms have to adapt. And if you did not tell your body that it needs to prioritize having big muscles, then it wouldn't have them, okay? It's simply a logical law here. And now I'm going to get into more of the foundation behind how I came about this training style. And this is something that I decided to make a video on because I've been implementing it in some of my upcoming keto shredding program that I am releasing very soon. So this is how I got the idea for this video. But I had initially came across this idea years ago when I was looking more into the golden era bodybuilders. And if you know anything about golden era bodybuilders, 70s, 60s, 80s, probably before the 80s a bit more, if I had to be specific. These guys were not doing crazy amounts of cardio because they weren't doing cardio at all. They were simply hitting the gym a second time. And besides the fact that, performance-enhancing drugs were just taking effect back then, and you could say that they were using less than people do nowadays, but that's not the point. The point here is that these guys were putting excess demand on their body and creating the same calorie burn, and they were upregulating hormonal responses that are associated with having big muscles and being a bodybuilder. Okay, so that was how I initially got into this, but there's also some great work on this that inspired me to, dive deeper into the research behind this a couple years ago, when maybe 2-3 years ago, I listened to some more work from Stan Efferding, and basically his work with Flex Wheeler, the bodybuilder, because when it comes to a, strict cutting fat loss scenario, the best thing a bodybuilder could do is continue to build the body. And when you are doing a cardio activity that is not putting stress on the muscles in any certain way, more so the cardiovascular system, what you're telling your body is, this muscle kind of gets in the way. So we should burn the calories, and there's no extra demand here to keep this muscle around. So that doesn't mean, I have a study here that I'm going to say means you're going to lead to more muscle loss if you do only one training session a day and you do cardio. That's not what it means. What it means is simply you can increase that demand if you are hardcore enough, and I believe you'll see absolutely incredible results in your physique. And this is something that I do on a very regular basis, and the last couple of years, it's something I've been starting to do more as a fat-burning tool. There are also bodybuilders who use this style nowadays. One in particular off the top of my head is Joel Kellett. So Joel Kellett, he spoke about this in an interview with my friend Golden Era Bookworm, where this guy basically trains twice a day. And he claims that he's a natural bodybuilder, and he's a very large guy. People compare his proportions to Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the point is, a lot of bodybuilders use this technique. And perhaps some of them would use it without even knowing that that's the specific purpose, because you hear bodybuilders from decades ago who were simply hitting the gym 2-3 times a day anyways. So they were already keeping that fat metabolism high, the insulin sensitivity high, the need for anabolism high, the muscle tissue sensitive to anabolic hormone and insulin, okay? So, and perhaps increasing androgenic hormones at the same time, like testosterone, okay? Those things were key. And of course, none of this can happen without adequate nutrition. So I encourage you to look at my other videos on nutrition, especially because I'm a huge fan of the ketogenic diet, and I've been doing it for 9 years, and fasting and all these other techniques. But the point is, there's a lot of ways to integrate this. And one thing that people have commented on my videos before is that I seem to have, decent strength for a ketogenic diet guy. And a lot of people associate keto and all these other, fasting-oriented approaches as an approach where you're going to lose muscle or strength. And that's simply not the case, because at the end of the day, no matter what approach you choose nutritionally, your body will adapt to the stress you put on it. That is the key point here. What is most important is that no matter what you do, your body will adapt to the stress you put on it. Now, granted, if you're eating like shit, chances are your body's going to burn out, and that's going to tax your body. But if you're setting things up in a nutritionally efficient manner, what's going to happen is your body will adapt to those stressors and create more muscle gain, better fat loss, and you will get the same effects as a, stationary bike, Liss type dieter, except you'll probably have more of an emphasis on maintaining that muscle and building it even during a cutting phase. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I always refer to health and fitness topics with two sides of the coin. You have the quantitative perspective and the qualitative perspective. And don't leave yet, because I'm going to explain this and make it very easy. Okay? Everybody looks at quantity. Everybody looks at how many calories are you burning? How many calories are you eating? Nothing, no macros and exercise don't matter. All that matters is your total net calorie expenditure. That's what everybody says quantitatively. Okay? The hormonal side is the qualitative perspective. It looks at the individual hormonal chain reactions that you cause from certain food choices, from certain food combinations, from exercise habits, and lifestyle habits. So essentially, that is the hormonal side, the qualitative side. So the example I commonly give here is the keto diet versus a calorie counting IIFYM diet, if it fits your macros. With the macro approach, you have simply this, as long as your calories are there, you're fine. With the keto approach, you, rather than trying to focus on the total amount of calories consumed, you focus simply on cutting out the macro group, the carbs, that is going to spike your insulin, the fat storage hormone, the most. So rather than looking at the total quantity necessarily, I mean, you'll still probably hit a good quantity of calories because the appetite suppression effects. The point is your focus is on quality and hormones first. Okay? Hormones are the key, indicator of this qualitative side. So when we go back to this example of Liss versus secondary light weightlifting scenario, what's going to happen is you are going to burn the same amount of calories, the same quantity, you're going to create the same quantitative effect, but in terms of the qualitative effect, you are going to create something entirely different. Okay? That is the end of this video. I encourage you to like it. Check out my programs because they're going to integrate these techniques in a way that is so easily applicable for you. So I encourage you to stay tuned for that. I'm Anthony Romano. Peace.